Listen up. If you've been watching the NBA playoffs from the sidelines, now is the perfect time to get on all the action with FanDuel Sportsbook. Because during the conference finals, new users get 30-1 odds on any team to win their next game. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. I've been betting basketball on FanDuel Sportsbook all season long, and there are so many ways to win with FanDuel. Their app is simple to use with unique and fun bet types, such as same-game parlays and exclusive always-on promotions, so you get more action out of every game day. New users sign up now for FanDuel Sportsbook with promo code Hennig to bet on the NBA Conference Finals at 30-1 odds. That's promo code Hennig exclusively on FanDuel Sportsbook's app. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey, new users only. Must wager on designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
I am the voice of the voiceless.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. .3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. Just follow 97.3 ESPN on the social media platforms. There are still NBA playoffs going on. Tonight, it is the Suns versus the Clippers. You can hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 8:30 p.m. thanks to ESPN Radio's coverage. But we will also be talking about your 76ers because the postmortem continues. And, man, this Ben Simmons stuff is not going away. So we got to get more into the Sixers. Daryl Morey said a lot of nothing today. We got Paul Hudrick joining us for Sixers Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. He will join us coming up at 6:20 tonight. And as always, we love to hear from you guys. You listen on 97.3 ESPN FM. The text board is open at 609-403-0973. Again, the text board is 609-403-0973. Also, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can comment on the stream and get on the conversation here on 97.3 ESPN. And, you know, today is one of those days where as time passes, more information becomes more clear about what is and is not happening with this Sixers team. And the fact that Daryl Morey was completely, for lack of a better term, non-committal to the future of this team tells you everything you need to know. Okay? Here's what you need to know about the Sixers' future. The roster that you saw in Game 7 will not be the same roster you see when this team hits the preseason court in the beginning of October of later this year. Daryl Morey has a history of not sitting on his hands. Daryl Morey has a history of doing whatever he thinks he has to help his team win. There is something that I think people are overlooking with all the Ben Simmons conversation, with all the Sixers conversation. Daryl Morey was not here for the previous several years before November of 2020. You can have all the opinions that you want about the 76ers. And yes, we will get to Ben Simmons in a bit because he's part of the puzzle here. But for the people who want to keep saying, well, the Sixers have been doing this, the Sixers did that. The current administration in charge of the Sixers front office was not here previously. Remember, Daryl Morey is technically the 5th general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers since 2013. You had Sam Hinkie. And then Sam Hinkie was forced out for Brian Colangelo. And then Brian Colangelo, the scandal hit. And then Brett Brown was the interim GM with the basically the cabal, basically in charge of the Sixers front office for that one summer when they traded Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith. Then they hired Elton Brand. And then Elton Brand made the subsequent trades that people loved him at first for like Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. And then after that, the Sixers started doing some front office cleanup. And while Elton Brand is technically still the GM, the real man in charge of basketball operations is Daryl Morey now. So you've had multiple different visions that have been infused into this roster that have made all of this happen. There's a lot to complain about with the 76ers. There's a lot to wrap your head around with this organization. And I get that. And there's a lot of complaints to be had. But let me tell you something. The 76ers are the compilation of all of those things. There's not one person to blame. There's not one entity who has to go down with the ship. So I understand people are mad at Ben Simmons. I understand people are mad at this organization. I understand that people are frustrated with Joel Embiid's injury history. People are not happy with the team losing Game 7 on their home floor. This thing that was supposed to bring them to the conference finals finally was the home court advantage, and it didn't even pan out for them. And they played horribly in Game 7. But keep in mind, this is not a front office that has a history of sitting on their hands and being complacent. I think that we need to, instead of trust the process, trust Morey. Daryl Morey, I understand, has never won an NBA championship. But what Daryl Morey does have on his resume is a history of doing whatever it takes to win. And when I mean whatever it takes, Daryl Morey does whatever it takes to win. Now, does he always make the best decisions? No one always makes the right decisions. But it's the fact that Daryl Morey spent about 13, 14 years in Houston saying, I'm trying to find a way to win basketball games. And he did it for all those years. Remember, he's the one who took the risk on James Harden. James Harden might not be the superstar he is today if Daryl Morey didn't pluck him out of OKC, give him that extension, and say, this is now your team. That was a huge moment for the Rockets organization. Because remember, when Daryl Morey first became the official man in charge, that was the McGrady Yao Ming era. And over time, Yao Ming just couldn't stay healthy. McGrady got older. They had to move on from him. And they went through that dead period where they just couldn't find their franchise centerpiece. He had to move on from Rick Adelman. He had to do different things that he was trying to figure out. How do I get back to the playoffs? How do I set this team back on track? He had Kyle Lowry. He had to get rid of Kyle Lowry because Lowry wasn't the guy he needed him to be. Their leading scorer was Kevin Martin at one point. Don't you forget that Goran Dragic at one point with the Houston Rockets as well, all right? Daryl Morey did a lot of shake and bake for a while there down in Houston until he got James Harden. And even when he got James Harden was, 23, 24 years old? He ain't the guy that he is now. But Morey stuck with Harden. And he found a way to build different versions of a team around him until they got to Game 7 of the conference finals, and they had a chance against the Warriors. And because of Chris Paul's injuries, they shot horribly from 3. Paul wasn't healthy. It wasn't enough. That's the closest they got. And they blew it up again. The Russell Westbrook experiment. That didn't work out. But Daryl Morey's never been afraid to take the big shot. He wasn't afraid to send all those players in that trade for Chris Paul or to trade Paul in his own conference to OKC. He wasn't afraid to go out and get Harden. So do you really think that Daryl Morey's going to sit on his hands, not do anything this offseason? Don't hold the sins of previous Sixers GMs against Daryl Morey. Let Morey do his job. And I'm looking forward to see what he actually does. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open as always at 609-403-0973. For all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City, 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter with all of your thoughts and comments as well during the show right here on 97.3 ESPN. Now, with the Ben Simmons stuff, as I was saying yesterday, I think Ben Simmons' problem comes down to psychological. And I know some of you're just too angry and you're not deep enough and you're too shallow to understand that some people may just have personal problems that affect their life, okay? And maybe Ben Simmons isn't tough enough and as mentally strong of fortitude as you might want him to be. But Yaron Weitzman said something to Mike Gill today on the Sports Bash that I think is very, very important to keep in mind. And again, as we mentioned yesterday and today on 97.3 ESPN, Yaron, his conversation with Ben Simmons, he writes about in this article they wrote on Fox Sports, it's insane. You listen to Ben rationalize not shooting to Yaron Weitzman in this one-on-one conversation, and you're just mind blown that this guy, he kept spinning it like a politician. Ben Simmons is trying to explain away fundamentals of the game under the umbrella of I'm so good at certain things and I'm so much better than other people at certain things that's why I do those things. And he goes on to rationalize that, wait a minute, I don't have to shoot. And there's a reason why he is this mentally closed. There's a reason why his mind just refuses to expound beyond a certain point. Yaron Weitzman on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill today said this.
He turns inward and he keeps his circle tight and he kind of digs in, and family and the people, closest friends, and those are the people he trusts. And I think part of that is because you have to remember he came up, and I compare it more, it's like a child star comes up in celebrity world as opposed to a basketball prospect, where Ben Simmons, remember, was one of the first big shot prospects to come up in the social media age. And, he was like a star in college and people hated him. They always hated him. It's very straight. Like everyone hated him. He just always turned inward and kept his family close, and he looked towards that. But I think you surround yourself with a lot of yes men in that way.
He surrounded himself with a lot of yes men in that way. He keeps the circle tight. He's surrounded by people who tell him what he wants to hear. He has people who don't challenge him. They don't push him. They don't want him to get better than he is because maybe they don't need him anymore. Or he doesn't need them anymore. See, that's what happens to a lot of people who are in Ben Simmons' situation. They surround themselves with these people who convince them that they're right. So instead of Ben Simmons going out and learning to get better and hiring a new training partner or a new coach or going and evolving, he's got people in his ear telling him, hey man, you're the best. You don't need to get better. Don't listen to those people. And it's stunting his basketball development. It's stunting his development as a human being. And as far as I'm concerned, Ben Simmons will never reach his potential as an NBA player in a Sixers uniform. And that is the reason why you have to move on. He is so short-sighted in terms of his personal and professional life, as Doc Rivers insinuated the other day, that there's things going on in Ben Simmons' life that he's never had to deal with or experience with his own family. What does that mean? What's going on in Ben Simmons' personal life that is so tumultuous compared to other people? And if it's that bad, and if it's having that kind of impact on him, Ben needs help. Ben needs to go see a shrink, a therapist, a psychologist, a counselor, a pastor, something. But as long as he has these yes men around him, and as long as there are these things in place around him in his personal and professional life that are enabling him to stay where he's at, he will never, ever reach his potential. And I think that's the biggest reason why you have to trade Ben Simmons. Because if he stays in Philadelphia, the likelihood of him evolving and growing and getting better is slim to none. But if you take him out of his comfort zone and you trade him somewhere else and you send him somewhere else in the league, then you know what? Maybe then he can actually get better. But until then, I'm not going to believe it. All right, text board is open, 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We have comments from Paul and Jeff over there on the video stream. We'll get to all of you guys a little bit later in the hour. But coming up next, Paul Hudrick, our Sixers Insider over at 973ESPN.com, will join me right here on Game Night Live in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Matt Black Kia, they will get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. More Sixers and NBA talk next right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN.
The NBA playoffs continue.
Here's Trae Young standing inside a half court. He's going to try a long three, and he's going to make it. Of course he is.
Trae Young in the Atlanta Hawks. Giannis in the Milwaukee Bucks. Both fresh off Game 7 wins in the conference semifinals. Now it's on to Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals in Milwaukee. Game 1 of the Bucks and Hawks. Coverage begins tomorrow at 8 Eastern. The NBA playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM. South Jersey's sports leader.
On some models excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes prior sales. See dealer for details. As you know, most car dealers in our area are still having trouble getting cars and charging a lot more for them. But Bennett Chevy isn't like most dealers. We kept what you love, our famous GM supplier employee prices. It's incredible. You pay what our supplier employees pay and not 1 penny more. And Bennett also gives you all the rebates. That's up to 25% off MSRP. 25% off. Plus, we've still got available 0% financing to save you even more. Shopping for pre-owned? Well, Bennett's still paying a minimum $7,000 for trades. So if any old junker is worth at least $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock, think of how much your good trade is worth. And Bennett's now an authorized lease return center for all brands. And with our non-commissioned sales staff paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, there's no pressure, no hassles. The best prices, low rates, the most for trades. Nobody beats Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Hello, this is Commissioner Len Desiderio. The Cape May County Commissioners want to say thank you to the people of Cape May County. You have done the hard work to slow the spread of COVID, but it's not over yet. If you want to be protected, please get vaccinated. Tens of thousands of Cape May County residents have already gotten the vaccine. Together, we are creating a safe and prosperous future for our businesses and families. Anyone 18 or over can go to the county vaccine clinic. Many of our pharmacies and grocery stores are vaccinating people 16 and over. Go to CapeMayCountyNJ.gov to find out how easy it is to get vaccinated. You can walk right in, no appointment necessary. Now is the time for everyone in Cape May County to finish strong, safely together.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Keep your text thoughts coming. 609-403-0973 is the text. We're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, where we can get on the show conversation as well on the Sports Batch with Mike Gill. Give me Josh Hennig Monday through Friday here on 97.3 ESPN FM. But also joining us on the web stream right now on 97.3 ESPN is our Sixers Insider over for 97.3 ESPN.com. That is Paul Hudrick at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Paul, how you doing today?
Doing great, Josh. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Before we get to the plethora of Sixers stuff, I was told to ask you how your day was because Mike Gill, I don't know if he was supposed to or not supposed to tell the world that you had a bit of a rough day today. So
yeah, no, I'm okay. I've had a rough couple of days, if I'm being honest, but yeah, just spent the day at urgent care for some pretty intense poison ivy on my legs that is very uncomfortable, but I'm gutting it out. Here we are, and I'm getting through it.
Well, if anybody understands working through uncomfortable, it's me. With all my chronic health problems. So trust me, I sympathize with you, even if it is only something like poison ivy. So hopefully it gets better soon, man. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Here's where I want to start. And listen, I think that we've had some time to remove ourselves from Sunday night. But my biggest thing with Sunday night was, and you tell me what you think of this, Paul, I felt that Ben Simmons didn't lose the game. Danny Green not being there didn't lose the game. Doc Rivers didn't lose the game. Everyone lost the game to me because I saw a team that played horrible on the offensive end. Joel Embiid had 8 turnovers. It felt like they could do nothing right for stretches of the time. And it just seemed like they forgot how to play basketball almost at certain stretches. And I just feel like this team just never had it in them. And by the end of the game, they just looked spent.
They look tight to me. I mean, I saw that from like the very beginning to the end. They just looked tight, making a lot of weird mistakes. I think they had 17 turnovers on the game as a team. As you mentioned, Joel Embiid had 8. And yeah, I mean, to make it clear, Ben Simmons deserves a lot of blame. He is clearly going through some type of mental issue in his play, and I don't really know how to describe it or what to say about it other than it's something that he's going to have to work out, and he's going to have to work it out in a hurry in order for him to be a part of the Sixers' future. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I blame a little bit of everything. Ben Simmons does get blamed. Doc Rivers gets blamed. I said after Game 5, Dwight Howard wouldn't play for the rest of the series, and I think you saw the minutes when he played. They didn't go very well in Game 6 or 7, really. His just stubbornness to keep wanting to go to these units with 4 bench players and 1 starter, just it didn't work through most of the playoffs, and I don't know why he continued to go back to it. And just the way he staggered, I think he could have done a much better job there. Tobias Harris, he was only okay, I would say, in Game 7. I thought he had a lot of opportunities at the rim that he missed. I thought perhaps at times he looked a little tight. And yeah, just the team as a whole. I thought, with Joel Embiid, Atlanta showed him a lot of pressure. That they basically almost sent 3 guys on him on almost every single possession. And I thought he tried to do too much. I think he tried to, Doc had referenced that before, that too many guys are maybe trying to play a little hero ball and trying to win games by themselves. And I think you can count Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris as two of those guys that were trying to do that. And yeah, it's Josh. Sometimes I think we all tend to want to focus on one thing, but you don't lose basketball games. You especially don't lose 7-game series because of one thing. You lose it because of many things. And I think it's sure Ben Simmons is right at the top, but all those other things that we talked about, I think are just as important when you're talking about why they lost the series.
And we'll certainly get to Ben, because I don't want to get him at the top because I feel like that's a whole nother situation. Ben is like a galaxy unto himself, and that the Sixers are like an entire universe around that galaxy. Okay, but to me, I know people are acting like, oh, Daryl Morey didn't say anything today. First of all, he didn't have to say anything. What you know is Daryl Morey's record. The dude was in Houston for 14 years. If we know anything about Daryl Morey, is this, Paul. The dude doesn't sit on his hands. The dude is not afraid to make changes. I mean, he literally had to make the transition from the McGrady Yao Ming era to the Harden era. And if it wasn't for the Chris Paul injuries, the Rockets might have been in the NBA Finals. So, you know what? Daryl Morey is not going to sit there and just be like, we're good enough. We'll run it back again next year. This isn't Brett Brown and the cabal running the Sixers organization anymore. People want to blame Daryl Morey for the sins of previous GMs, and I am not going to do that, Paul. I'm going to let this guy go out there and do his job.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of points you make, and when you talk about Daryl Morey, I want to say one of his comments today that I think stood out to me the most, and I think any good executive, this should be the way they are. He said, we don't want to overreact to what we just witnessed, but we don't want to underreact either. And that's exactly where we should all be. I get it. As fans, a lot of people are very emotional. And their initial reaction is trade Ben Simmons right now. Take whatever you can get. I don't care, for a bag of basketballs. And it's like, well, no, you don't do that. That's not the way this works. This is still a guy who's 24 years old, who has still made 3 all-star teams and was the runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year. You don't give away a player like that, despite what we just witnessed. And Daryl Morey's not going to do that. I think his approach, and we got to give him some, I think not only his track record with the Rockets, I think what he's already done as Sixers, president of basketball operations, what he's already done in that role should give him some leeway. He took this job right before the season started. I mean, right before the draft in an already truncated offseason, he took this job then. So he really didn't get a lot of time. And even in that time, he drafted Tyrese Maxey. He traded Al Horford's contract away and got Danny Green back in return. He traded for Seth Curry, who was arguably the Sixers' second best player in the playoffs. He gets a young backup 5 in Tony Bradley, who gave them some really good minutes this year, who he was able to use to get George Hill. So, I mean, the track record is not only, like you said, 14 years in Houston and the things he's done, and the way he's remade that team and remolded that team around James Harden, but just in the little time he's been with the Sixers, I am very intrigued to see what he does with a full offseason and a full season of getting to see how this team works, and then a full offseason to see the moves he can make and to make calls and to see what he can do and to see what kind of deals he can find.
Now, before we get to, again, the Ben Simmons galaxy, I know there are some free agent situations with this team. Can you explain some of those to the audience and where you think the Sixers' priorities will be with guys who may be coming and going?
So Danny Green is the most marquee free agent they have. Personally, just with their cap situation and where they are, I would be kind of surprised to see him come back. Now, maybe, they do have their taxpayer mid-level exception if Danny Green is willing to come on a cheaper deal than what he had this year. He is a little bit older. He is coming off an injury. So I don't know. I don't know what the market's going to look like for him. My gut tells me, though, when you look at a Matisse Thybulle who's waiting in the wings, when you look at a Shake Milton who they want to develop more, Tyrese Maxey, obviously, who they want to get more playing time, I just am not 100% sure where Danny Green would fit into that. So that's the biggest name. Furkan Korkmaz is another guy. I have a feeling that the NBA loves shooting. That's the trend right now. And Furkan Korkmaz, when he gets hot, and he can really help space the floor for a team. So I would expect him to maybe go to a team that can maybe give him a little bit more money, can maybe guarantee him a little bit bigger of a role. I'm not sure he's back either. Down the line, George Hill is a guy who there is an option for, I think it's around 10 million, or they can you could walk away, buy him out for I think 1.9 million. So that's kind of a decision there. For me, I hang on to George Hill because I would like to see him to start the season and see if he can give me anything as a backup point guard. If not, that $10 million in salary could do them some good in a trade down the line. So I think keeping George Hill makes more sense than buying him out in that regard. Other than that, Josh, I think one of the things that, if you're a Sixers fan, one of the things that should make you optimistic is that you have a lot of guys coming back. You have a lot of guys who are under contract. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, all under long-term deals. Matisse Thybulle will be back. Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed. All those guys are going to be back. So they're going to be bringing pieces back that can help them. And then hopefully they can make some other moves around the margins, replace some of these other guys we're talking about, and we'll see what happens. But, the free agent stuff, I'm not as worried about with them. You're probably going to lose Danny Green, and that's going to hurt. But I think you can find ways to supplement the losses of the guys that you're going to lose.
Now, I think one of the ways to supplement that is through what you said earlier with trades, and that what leads us into the Ben Simmons thing. Now, my position is this, Paul. And my position is, I don't hate Ben Simmons. I don't love Ben Simmons. But I think he needs help. And I don't mean like basketball help. I think Ben needs to get a shrink, a therapist, a pastor, a counselor. He needs to grab a Bible. I don't know what it is. He needs something, because there are times that he has this look in his eyes. There's something wrong there, man. There's some kind of disconnect. And when you read the Yaron Weissman article on Fox Sports about the conversation with him and Ben, the fact that Ben keeps circling back around this circular reasoning, like he's almost a politician trying to rationalize why he voted for a bill. Like, it's like this guy needs help, and I don't think he's ever going to get better or find that help in Philadelphia. I am worried about him, that if he keeps going down the path that he's going down, something destructive may happen to him or in his personal life. Because when Doc Rivers turned around the other day, I think it was yesterday, and said, if my family's ever gone through things that Ben Simmons is going through, and I'm like, excuse me? If it's that serious, then Ben Simmons is the basketball player I'm not worried about. I'm worried about Ben Simmons, the person, and he may need just to get out of Dodge to finally deal with that situation.
Yeah, when this was all going on, I rightfully criticized him as a basketball player because he wasn't giving the team what it needed, and he was criticizing himself. And it was fair game. There is clearly something, and he has referenced it. There is something mentally going on with him. And I don't want to go too far down that because I don't want to speculate. I know there's some stuff out there with his family situation. I don't want to go too far down that because that's, quite frankly, that's not my business, not my concern. My concern is, what does Ben Simmons look like as a basketball player? And yeah, I think there is something there underlying because, look, Josh, even the most avid Ben Simmons haters who are just having a field day right now, you did not envision Ben Simmons having the worst free throw shooting postseason in NBA history. No one pictured that. You did not picture him just flat out deciding not to dunk basketballs at the rim. Like, the player that he was, even going back to last year 2 years ago in the playoffs, he wasn't like that Toronto series. Yeah, he wasn't very good, but it wasn't like this. Like, this is something beyond that. Like, there is something going on. There is a mental block and a mental issue that he needs to get through. The team needs to help him get through. As for can he figure it out in Philadelphia? I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I think he trusts Doc Rivers, which I think is a good start. I don't know. I mean, him and Brett Brown, the relationship wasn't bad, but wouldn't say it was great either. Right. I think he's really bought into what Doc Rivers is selling to him. I think he's really trusts Sam Cassell. So I think those things are positive things. Daryl Morey mentioned it, and Doc Rivers mentioned it yesterday that Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons have already met and discussed the offseason plan and what he needs to do and what their approach is going to be and all that. Doc said they're going to meet again, and they're going to meet throughout the offseason to discuss things. So I think those are positive steps. Now, I get the people that say, well, it hasn't happened yet. Why is it going to happen now? I don't have a good explanation for that. But I think if you're the Sixers and if you're Daryl Morey, you're not giving this guy away, because that would be foolish to me. You don't give a player like this away, especially like Josh. Let's say even the desire is to move on from him. I still think you keep him going into the season because you want teams to see him and remind them of why he's so good and why he could help them. So you want him to play some regular season games just for the mental aspect of, for other teams to see him having success and doing good things and to be reminded of why he's special, because he is still special. He has special talents that not every guy has, but he just also has those glaring flaws. And right now, that the mental hurdle, it's not allowing him to overcome those flaws.
Yeah, and listen, again, I don't hate or love Ben Simmons. I know I've been accused of both at different points of time, but for me, I just don't. I feel like it's like Carson Wentz in some ways. Like he just needs to get out of town to move on with his life, kind of thing. That's just my personal perspective. But I like what you said there. You said that they need to rehabilitate his value, basically. You know, you can't trade him and get nothing in return, which I don't know if they would get nothing in return, but I like Daryl Morey, some Neanderthal doesn't know how to make a trade, for goodness sake. But I just think that Morey's going to find a way to move on from him. I really do, because to me, Joel Embiid's a superstar. And to me, he is some strange combination, Joel Embiid, of Bill Walton and Hakeem Olajuwon. And I don't think you give up on that ever, ever, ever. Ben Simmons, you can give up on. And I think that whether it's his offseason or, as you said, maybe during the season, they're going to move on from him. And I think Daryl Morey is going to make a trade that's going to blow everybody's socks off, because that's what he does. He makes moves that people never see coming. No one expected Harden to be who he was. No one expected them to get Chris Paul. No one expected the Rockets to do a lot of things they did. And that's because Daryl Morey is just that much of a mad scientist.
For sure. I would say I would disagree with the one way you phrase. I wouldn't say that they are necessarily giving up on Ben Simmons. And I think it goes back to the other thing you talked about. It's more about Joel Embiid is in his prime. He was arguably the best player in the NBA this season, and he needs help. And that window, that window that was once as wide as anyone could see is now dwindling because we don't know how healthy he's going to be. We don't know how long he's going to hold up. And he is, like I said, just entering his prime. So that to me is the bigger thing, is that you need to capitalize on that. And right now, I don't think Ben Simmons, to your argument, I don't think Ben Simmons is the guy that can do that can help him, because I think Ben Simmons needs to work some things out. And I don't know that the Sixers can afford to have that patience. And I agree. Daryl Morey, I'll say this. If they do move Ben Simmons, it's because they're getting something good in return. They're not going to, like, I've seen some things out, like some of the trades I've seen out there, like for D'Angelo Russell. No, you guys, I don't think anyone who would make that trade has not watched D'Angelo Russell.
Oh, you know the
basketball.
reason why. There's a contingent of people who are obsessed with D'Angelo Russell. It's like the Kwame Brown truthers. Like, there's people who they think D'Angelo Russell is like something that he's never going to be.
No, and listen, he had an all-star season, all the credit in the world. And then, ironically, Ben Simmons is the one who exposed him in the playoffs and completely shut him down in that Brooklyn series. But yeah, I mean, listen, you could talk me into certain things. Like 6 months ago, would I have traded Ben Simmons for Zach LaVine? No, I would not have done that. But now, would I do it now? Yeah, I would. And just I will say that I still value Ben Simmons a lot. So I want something, not only something good, I want something that fits. I want something that makes Joel Embiid better, that makes the team better. I'm not just going to do it again just to get something. Like I need something really good. I need an all-star caliber player back. I need a shot creator back, a guard that can create offense and score the basketball and isn't afraid to shoot the basketball. I need those things. If I'm going to give up a guy like Ben Simmons, and if I don't get that, if that's the best thing I get is, Gerson Rosas calling me and offering me D'Angelo Russell for him, no, I'm walking away from that. I'm not interested in that at all. Then I saw another thing like Andrew Wiggins and picks. No, I am not doing any of those things. I need viable NBA players that are going to help me next year, and that can, help supplement Joel Embiid to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, anybody who mentions a mediocre former top pick and picks in exchange for Ben Simmons, I have zero interest in as well.
Correct.
Paul Hudrick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. All right. So with all that being said, the other side of the coin also with the Sixers, before I let you go, is Embiid only has 2 more years on his current contract. We know that he is technically going to be extension eligible soon. If you're the Sixers, are you looking to try to get him locked up again in the next 2 years so he doesn't run out of the contract? Or are you maybe letting the next season play out before you make a decision?
When the moment comes that he is allowed to sign that contract, I'm putting it in front of him. This is a guy, like I said, to me, yes, Nikola Jokic won the MVP and he had a terrific season. But to me, Joel Embiid during the regular season was the best player in the NBA. And I think at times, despite a torn meniscus, he looked still like the best player in the NBA. Especially when you account for defense and what he does on both ends of the floor. To me, I don't think here's the decision. I think it's as soon as he is eligible, as soon as, this offseason when you could offer it to him and he's eligible to sign it, I'm putting it in front of his face and I'm asking him to sign it. And then I figure the rest out later. Because look, let's say you don't do it, a world where you don't do it and then he signs somewhere else. I mean, the first place he's going to want to go is Miami, and that will be horrific in Sixers land. That will just make you look bad. The fan base would kill you and it'd just be bad. But if he signs and he gets hurt in 2 years, I mean, what would your chances have been with that money otherwise? You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see I get the downside. The downside is he's had injuries in the past and big men don't last. I get that, but I want his prime. I want to try to win something with his prime. I want that in Philadelphia. I don't want that somewhere else. So I am getting it to him immediately.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, like, there's a part of him that's Bill Walton to me. Bill Walton won a championship in Portland. He was a league MVP, but around all that, he couldn't stay healthy. But when he was healthy, he was this dominant force of nature. And to me, if you take that person and combine him with Hakeem Olajuwon, because to me, that's the closest physical comp we have for what Embiid can physically do at times. That's what Embiid is. He's Bill Walton meets Hakeem to me, and I just don't give up on that guy. And I don't care that the league is dominated by perimeter players. You don't give up on special talent in any sport.
I agree. I mean, it's this narrative that only guards can win. Because, I mean, you tell the Portland Trailblazers that, you can win with guards because they arguably had the best guard duo in the NBA for years, and they haven't won anything. They have, arguably the most dangerous scorer in the NBA, and they haven't won anything. Tell James Harden that. James Harden hasn't won anything, and he's been one of the most dominant offensive guards in NBA history. So it's not, to me, I get the idea of there are certain things you need. Like, in this NBA, you need to be able to hit threes at an appropriate, like, you need to be able to hit them at a reasonable level because 3 points are worth more than 2, and that's just the way the league is trending. But look at the Utah Jazz, who shot the three better than any team in the NBA. Where are they right now? They're at home. So it's not. I think there's more than one way to win a championship. Like, shooting wasn't a priority until the Golden State Warriors won a championship. Then all of a sudden, that's where the league trended. But now we have in the NBA the number 1 and number 2 MVP candidates were centers, and it's feasible to think that their teams could win a championship over the course of the next couple seasons. So, I just think the premise that you can't win with a center, I think, is outdated. With that said, not even outdated, that's not the right term, but you know what I mean. It's not correct. But I think they do need perimeter creation in order to help Joel Embiid and to get him to that next level. And to be a more complete team. So I don't think it's that you can't win without Joel Embiid. I think it's that if you want to have Joel Embiid and you want him to be the guy, you still need a perimeter scorer, shot creator to help him out.
Yeah, and every superstar needs help. No one can do it by themselves. He's Paul Hudrick at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Check out his work over there, coverage of the Sixers and the NBA, 973ESPN.com. And we appreciate him joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Paul, feel better, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We get to your thoughts and comments coming up next. 609-403-0973 is the text board, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. To your thoughts and comments as well on the stream. You want to watch the show, just follow 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
The NBA playoffs continue.
It was very special. It takes a whole collective team group to get what we got done tonight.
Devin Booker dropped 40 as the Suns take Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Now we head to Game 2. Can Paul George and the Clippers bounce back?
I expect us to get better as the series goes. All they did was win one game.
Game 2 of the Clippers and Suns. Coverage begins tonight at 8:30 Eastern.
The NBA playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Black Nissan.
The summertime sale is on at Matt Black Nissan, and the deals are heating up. Put 0 down, pay 0% interest for 60 months, or get $2,500 off MSRP on every 2021 Nissan Murano in stock. Plus, we need your trade. Buried in a current loan or lease, Matt Black Nissan wants to get you released so you can drive the all-new loaded SV model 2021 Nissan Rogue. Lease just $299 per month with 0 security deposit, plus our fast-track checkout. Bring any vehicle to Matt Black Nissan and get top dollar today in Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, or online at mattblacknissan.com.
It's on at Matt Black Nissan.
Negative equity will be refinanced into new vehicle. Rate qualifications exist. Not all will qualify. 0% APR financing based on 1667 per thousand borrowed. Offers can be combined. 36 month, 10,000 mile 2-year lease. Lease selling price $28,590. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblacknissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 7/5/21. It's on at Matt Black Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
You have the choice, whether it's going out for dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant or buying that new outfit from a local boutique. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local businesses.
Ambient Comfort Heating and Cooling Professionals. AmbientComfortNJ.com.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. FillingMarble.com.
Dennisville Fence, serving you since 1952. Be the envy of your neighborhood.
East Coast Roofing, Siding, and Windows services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Comfort Now by Bob McAllister. Improve the comfort in your home. Call 609-400-1005 and ask about discounts and rebate incentives. Visit iwantcomfortnow.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media South Jersey.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here in the Matt Black Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Matt Black Kia, they will get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. As promised, we'll get to you guys' thoughts and comments right here. 609-403-0973 is the text for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Get to your guys' thoughts and comments as well here. Get you guys in the chronological order your comments and thoughts came in at. We first got Mike from Lewes, Delaware. So first of all, shout out to the folks in Delaware listening on the stream here. Mike says, we all need to lighten up on Simmons. He didn't single-handedly lose that Game 7. He's 24 years old. Just because he looks like a man doesn't make him one. Now, Mike, you had a very long text, but I think I covered some of your texts a little bit yesterday on the show and also today as well. But just to hit on your overall point, listen, Mike, you're right. We act like that these athletes are supposed to be all figured out, right? We're supposed to have it all figured out, supposed to know exactly, who and what they are, but it doesn't always work out like that. So I think that I'm just worried about Ben Simmons, the person, because I think that whatever's going on with him outside the basketball game is affecting him as a basketball player. And that's why I say teams win and lose championships. I don't blame individuals for everything. So I agree with you. There's a maturity issue, but there's probably some other things going on. But whatever it is, I just hope he gets it taken care of because it's obviously affecting him as a professional. And if you're going to let things in your personal life affect your ability to excel as a professional, there's something wrong going on. That's how I look at it. Over on the Facebook, Paul chimes in and says, hey, Josh, Sixers team reminds me a lot of the 01-04 Eagles teams. They weren't ready for the big time. Also, Embiid not getting enough blame, too many turnovers, too many easy dunks from Embiid taking plays off or being out of position. Well, first of all, I think the problem with Embiid is not him being out of position. I think it's the offense. Because of Ben Simmons, he has to function a certain way. So Embiid is like a stretch center. He's a guy who can hit the three. Ben doesn't take threes. So Embiid has to function more like a perimeter player at times for proper spacing for Ben Simmons sometimes. So that's why he's in a situation. And I said yesterday, I blamed Embiid for the 8 turnovers. I was listen, anybody can go back and watch on the YouTube channel. I was blasting the Sixers yesterday for the poor offense and for the turnovers. But you mentioned the Eagles 01-04 teams. What happened to those Eagle teams? They got Terrell Owens, they got to the Super Bowl, and they were in the game because of T.O. So under your analogy, Paul, what you're basically saying is the Sixers are a player away from contending for a championship. And you might have to make a trade to get that player because in free agency right now, there's not a lot of hot items this offseason. So you might have to trade Ben Simmons. You might have to move on from a player that you don't want to move on from, whether it's a Thibault or somebody else, in order to facilitate that deal to get who you want and need. Also on YouTube, Hodor the Horrific says, the big problem I have with this team set around Embiid is how long it takes to get him the ball. Too often we would mess around. We get the ball with 10 seconds or less on the clock. He goes on to say, with the perimeter play creator, they had the ball to start with. They have most of the shot clock to get a good shot at Embiid's forced rushing shot. I agree, but again, that's the offense that Ben Simmons runs. They're moving the ball on the perimeter. Embiid's doing work in the post. If you ran a system like they did with Shaq in Los Angeles Lakers or with Hakeem in Houston with the Rockets, the ball goes to them almost immediately. And then the rest of the players operate around them. I think that's a much more reasonable way to run an offense with a big man like Embiid. Real quick, one more from Dan EHT. Don't know why everyone's making it so complicated. With the Sixers, if Joe was 100%, they had Danny Green to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Embiid didn't have his legs in the fourth quarter. That's from Dan EHT. Dan, you're right, but his team is still flawed. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Catch you tomorrow.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff. Learn more, live better.
Want to improve your brain function? Do a cardio workout. One study found that after one treadmill session, exercisers learn new words 20% faster. Why? Because getting your heart pumping delivers more oxygen to your brain, and that stimulates new growth in the areas that control multitasking, memory, and planning. Another way exercise can transform your life, you'll be happier at work. According to the University of Bristol, on days when workers participated in an on-site fitness session, they reported thinking more clearly, getting more done, and having better relationships with their coworkers. So there you go. In addition to being healthier, exercise can make us happier and even smarter. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life.